Dr. Alan Foster rubbed his tired eyes as he stared at the screen. For 3 days straight, he had been working to decode the strange signal that Earth's deep space array had picked up. It wasn't random noise. There was a pattern, a message. He knew it. "I think I've got something," he said to the empty lab. His voice echoed slightly against the walls. The breakthrough came at 3:27 a.m. on a Tuesday in 2098. Alan's computer program finally aligned the signal's strange mathematical sequences into recognizable patterns. As the translation algorithm processed the data, words began appearing on his screen. "Greetings, inhabitants of Sol 3. We are the Galactic Council." Alan's heart raced. His hand trembled as he reached for his phone to call the director. This was it. First contact. Within hours, the world's governments were informed. Within days, the news spread across Earth, creating waves of excitement, fear, and wonder. Humanity was not alone, and more importantly, an advanced coalition of species wanted to talk. The Galactic Council's messages continued, describing a peaceful alliance of 27 spacefaring civilizations that govern most of the Milky Way. They spoke of trade, cultural exchange, and mutual protection. "This could be the greatest moment in human history," said President Garcia during an emergency United Nations session. "We are being invited to join the galactic community." Not everyone shared the president's optimism. Captain Olivia Green of the Earth Defense Force studied the transmissions with growing concern. "They're not asking us anything about ourselves," she noted during a security briefing. "All communication is one way. They tell, we listen. That's not a dialogue between equals." Her warnings were noted but quickly overshadowed when the Council announced they would send representatives to Earth. The arrival date was set for 3 months later, giving humanity time to prepare. Except they didn't wait. The Council ships appeared in Earth's orbit just 2 weeks after first contact. 7 massive vessels, each larger than any structure humans had ever built. They didn't announce their early arrival. They simply appeared. "This is Ambassador Scathar of the Galactic Council," came the transmission. "We request immediate audience with Earth's leadership." The meeting took place at the United Nations headquarters. Scathar, a tall humanoid with blue-tinted skin and 4 arms, spoke in perfect English through a small device attached to his throat. "The Galactic Council is pleased to offer Earth Protectorate status," the ambassador announced. "Under our guidance, your species will advance rapidly. In exchange, we require only access to study your unique planetary resources." "And if we decline?" asked the Secretary General. Scafar's expression didn't change. "Then Earth remains isolated. No trade, no technology, no protection from less friendly species. The choice is yours, but I must have your answer today." In a private room, Earth's leaders debated the ultimatum. "We're not ready for this," said Captain Green. "Something doesn't add up." "We can't afford isolation," argued the Chinese representative. "And we certainly can't fight them." After hours of heated discussion, Earth reluctantly accepted the Council's terms. The agreement was signed, and within days, Council ships began deploying strange equipment in orbit. "Resource survey modules," Scathar explained. "Standard procedure for new protectorates." But as the months passed, more Council ships arrived. Their survey operations expanded. Access to certain areas of Earth was restricted for safety reasons. Council advisors took positions in major governments. Dr. Alan Foster, once celebrated for his discovery, now watched with growing unease as more extraction vessels entered Earth orbit. In his private journal, he wrote what many were beginning to suspect. "I fear I've doomed humanity by answering their call. This isn't partnership. It's something else entirely." 5 years passed since Earth had joined the Galactic Council as a protectorate. In that time, much had changed. Council ships now filled Earth's skies. Their massive resource extractors dotted the oceans. Strange towers reached into the clouds, pulling something invisible from the atmosphere. Kevin Hayes splashed through the shallow tide pools of the Oregon coast. As a marine biologist, He had watched with horror as ocean life began to die. First the small creatures, then larger ones. The council claimed it was just an unfortunate side effect of their harmless extraction process. "They're lying to us," Kevin said to his research assistant as he collected water samples. The once vibrant tide pools now contained only sickly organisms and strange, oily residue. Back at his lab, the tests confirmed what he had suspected. The water contained trace elements of council technology, particles that were poisoning everything they touched. When he tried to publish his findings, his research was immediately classified by the council-appointed Earth Science Advisory Board. Meanwhile, in Seattle, computer specialist Grace Miller worked late at her office. She had been hired by the council to help integrate Earth's networks with their own. But Grace had other plans. For months, she had been quietly building a backdoor into the council's system. Tonight, she finally broke through their security. What she discovered made her blood run cold. On her screen appeared a classified council document, Resource World Classification, Sol 3, Earth. Grace read with increasing horror. Earth was not considered a partner or even a protectorate. It was classified as a resource world. A planet to be systematically stripped of all valuable materials until nothing remained. "They've done this before," she whispered as she read further. "Hundreds of planets across the galaxy have been reduced to lifeless husks through the same process now happening to Earth. The Council's entire civilization was built on this exploitation." Grace downloaded everything she could find. According to their timetable, Earth had less than 20 years before it would become uninhabitable. The extraction was accelerating. She encrypted the data and sent it to the only person she trusted, her old college roommate who now worked for the Earth Defense Force. 2 days later, Grace was approached by a woman she didn't know. "Don't react," the woman said quietly as they stood in line at a coffee shop. "My name is Olivia Green. I received your data. We need to talk somewhere safe." That evening, in a basement room with no electronic devices, Grace met with a small group of scientists and military personnel. "We call ourselves Project Phoenix," Captain Green explained. "We've been gathering evidence of the Council's true intentions for years. Your data confirms our worst fears." Dr. Alan Foster was there too, older and grim-faced. "I blame myself for answering their signal," he said. "But now we must focus on survival." They showed Grace their findings. The Council wasn't just taking physical resources. They were especially interested in Earth's biodiversity. Plants, animals, even bacteria were being harvested and shipped away. Earth's unique evolutionary path had created biological compounds found nowhere else in the galaxy. "They're taking everything," said Kevin Hayes, who had joined the group weeks earlier. "The oceans will be dead zones within 3 years at this rate." Project Phoenix had allies around the world. Scientists, soldiers, even some government officials who had seen the truth. They worked in secret, studying council technology, looking for weaknesses. "We can't fight them directly," Captain Green said. "Their weapons are too advanced. But every species has a vulnerability." As the meeting ended, they heard alarming news. Council ships were deploying new extraction equipment in the Atlantic. The timetable was accelerating. "We're running out of time," Foster said. "Earth is dying faster than we predicted." Grace looked at the determined faces around her. "Then we'd better work faster than they expect." Project Phoenix found its home in an old Antarctic research station. On maps, it appeared abandoned after budget cuts. In reality, it buzzed with activity beneath the ice. Here, far from council sensors, humanity planned its resistance. Dr. Samantha Wilson worked tirelessly in the makeshift lab. Before the council arrived, she had been developing clean energy solutions. Now she studied the alien technology, looking for weaknesses. "Their energy systems are incredible," she said, examining a damaged council device smuggled to the base. "But they rely on principles we never considered. It's not just advanced. It's completely different." Lieutenant Ryan Davis led the intelligence team. A former Special Forces operator, he now trained small groups to gather information from council facilities. His teams moved like ghosts, planting bugs, copying data, and disappearing before they could be detected. The council thinks we're just accepting our fate, Ryan told new recruits during training. They see humans as primitive and obedient. That's our advantage. 3 levels below the surface, the base expanded as more people joined the resistance. Engineers built power systems that couldn't be detected. Communication specialists developed codes that mimicked natural radio patterns. Every day, new information arrived from allies around the world. We've identified their main communications network, Ryan reported during the daily briefing. They use something like quantum entanglement, but our team in Brussels managed to intercept some transmissions. The breakthrough came when Samantha noticed something unusual in the Council's energy devices. They all contain this same element, she said, pointing to strange blue crystals inside the alien technology. It's not just a component, it's the key to everything they build. Analysis showed the element didn't appear on Earth's periodic table, but something about it seemed familiar to Kevin Hayes, who had joined the Antarctic base after his lab was shut down. I've seen something similar, he said, comparing the crystal to samples he had collected from Council ocean extractors. They're pulling raw materials from Earth to synthesize this element. Grace Miller, now the head of Phoenix's data analysis, searched through the stolen Council files. According to this, the element is called Zintrium, and it's the foundation of their technology. They can't manufacture it without specific mineral compounds. Compounds found primarily on Earth, Samantha finished, excitement in her voice. That's why they're here. That's why they're rushing the extraction. As Project Phoenix made progress, the situation above ground deteriorated. Council enforcers cracked down on any sign of resistance. People disappeared for asking the wrong questions. Council protection zones expanded, forcing humans from their homes. Major Christopher Ortiz arrived at the base with grim news. They took my family, he said, his voice tight with controlled anger. Call them diplomatic guests to ensure my continued cooperation. I played along until I could reach you. His story wasn't unique. Across the planet, the Council tightened its grip, but their actions only drove more people to the resistance. The real game changer came when Samantha made her discovery. Zintrium becomes unstable when exposed to specific frequencies, she explained, showing the results of her experiments. The Council has built their entire civilization on an element with a fatal flaw. Ryan's team confirmed her findings during a raid on a Council facility. Their ships, weapons, even their life support systems, everything depends on Zintrium. If we can disrupt it, we can shut them down, Captain Green finished. All of them. At once. Project Phoenix now had a weapon, but they needed time to develop it. That time was running out. Council surveillance drones began flying over Antarctica with increasing frequency. They're getting suspicious, Ryan warned. We need to accelerate our timeline. They didn't get the chance. 3 days later, Council warships appeared over the research station. The alarm sounded throughout the base. We've been compromised, Captain Green announced over the intercom. Evacuation Plan Delta. This is not a drill. As the first explosions rocked the ice above them, Project Phoenix prepared to scatter across the solar system. The Antarctic ice glowed orange as Council ships rained energy beams onto the surface. Inside the base, Project Phoenix members raced to save their work and escape with their lives. Get the catalyst prototype to Shuttle 2, Captain Green ordered as the ceiling trembled. All research data on backup drives. Now, Dr. Ethan Morgan carefully packed the device they had spent months developing. The catalyst was their best hope, perhaps humanity's only hope. It looked simple, a silver cylinder the size of a coffee thermos with intricate wiring inside. But this device could disrupt the molecular structure of Zintrium, turning the Council's greatest strength into a catastrophic weakness. Is it stable? Grace asked as Ethan sealed the container. Stable enough for transport, he replied. But we need at least another month of testing before it's ready to deploy. A month they didn't have. The evacuation tunnels led to hidden hangars where modified shuttles waited. These weren't military vessels. Project Phoenix had secretly converted civilian spacecraft, disguising them to appear as standard transport ships. Team Alpha to Mars base, Team Beta to the Europa outpost, Captain Green directed. Everyone else to the designated safe houses. Maintain communication blackout for 72 hours minimum. Samantha Wilson looked back at her lab as she prepared to leave. 3 years of work, and now they were running. "We need more time," she said. "We'll make time," Ryan answered, helping her carry critical equipment to the shuttle. "The Council thinks they're crushing us. Let them believe it." Above ground, the situation deteriorated rapidly. Council enforcers captured the first evacuation shuttle as it emerged from a hidden exit. The second barely escaped, scraping past enemy fire as it accelerated toward orbit. Not everyone made it out. Dr. Alan Foster and 20 others stayed behind to destroy sensitive data and create a diversion. Their sacrifice allowed the main team to escape, but at a terrible cost. Around the world, environmental catastrophes accelerated as Council extraction intensified. Rivers ran dry or turned toxic. Weather patterns shifted dramatically as atmospheric compounds changed. Species went extinct weekly. The Council was stripping Earth bare with increasing urgency. Major Christopher Ortiz led a small team to one of the rural safe houses in Montana. "The Council is celebrating their victory," he reported over the secure channel. "Their propaganda says the terrorist organization has been eliminated." This false sense of security gave Project Phoenix the breathing room they desperately needed. Scattered across Earth and the solar system, the teams continued their work. On Mars, Dr. Ethan Morgan refined the catalyst design. "The disruption wave needs to be synchronized across multiple devices," he explained in encrypted messages. "One catalyst can disable a ship or facility, but to hit their entire network, we need at least 7 triggered simultaneously." From her hidden location in the Appalachian Mountains, Admiral Patricia Clark coordinated the global military assets still loyal to Earth rather than the Council-appointed governments. "When the time comes, we'll need conventional forces to strike while their technology is down," she told her commanders. "Every ship, every soldier, every weapon we can salvage." The plan took shape over weeks of secret communications. The catalyst devices would target key points in the Council's network. Earth forces would seize control of transportation hubs. Allied ships would use the Council's own jump gates to reach the galactic core. "It's ambitious," Captain Green acknowledged during a rare secure video conference, "but it's our only shot." As they prepared, Council confidence grew. Their security relaxed slightly. Extraction rates increased. They believed the resistance was broken. Grace Miller, monitoring Council communications from a hidden server farm in Tokyo, detected a troubling development. "They're accelerating again," she reported. "New estimates show they'll complete primary extraction within 5 years, not 20. The timeline compressed. The scattered Phoenix teams worked around the clock. The catalyst devices were still being tested when Admiral Clark made the call. "We move in 3 days," she announced. Ready or not, the pieces were in place. Humanity's last desperate counterattack was about to begin. The Council cruiser glided silently over Seattle, its blue energy field humming in the rain. Inside the ship, alien crew members monitored extraction rates without concern. Their sensors showed nothing unusual, just another day harvesting Earth's resources. They didn't notice the small maintenance drone that attached to their hull. Nor did they detect when Captain Daniel Wells, hidden inside the modified drone, cut through an access panel and slipped aboard. "I'm in," he whispered into his communicator. The tiny device in his ear picked up his voice without requiring him to make a sound above a whisper. "Proceed to the power junction," came Admiral Clark's voice. "You have 12 minutes before the patrol reaches your section." Across the planet, similar infiltrations were underway. The counterattack had begun. For months, Project Phoenix operatives had studied Council ship designs, security protocols, and patrol patterns. Today, they would use that knowledge to strike simultaneously at 37 key targets. Daniel moved through narrow maintenance tunnels designed for the Council's robotic systems. His compact body barely fit through spaces never meant for humans. He reached the power distribution node and attached the first catalyst device. Package delivered, he reported, activating the timer. Extraction in 9 minutes. Similar reports came in from around the globe. In orbit, disguised human ships approached Council stations. On the ground, resistance fighters prepared to seize control of extraction facilities. At the Mars base, Dr. Ethan Morgan monitored the operation. Synchronization is critical, he reminded the teams. The catalysts must activate within a 20-second window, or the disruption wave won't cascade through their network. The Council remained oblivious. Their overconfidence after destroying the Antarctic base had made them complacent. They didn't notice the small signs of resistance activity or dismissed them as inconsequential. At Council headquarters in Brussels, Ambassador Scathur received a report about unusual ship movements near Jupiter. Probably mining vessels, he said dismissively. The humans lack the capability to reach the outer planets without our technology. He was wrong. Using modified Council engines salvaged from damaged ships, Project Phoenix had established a base on Europa. From there, Lieutenant Ryan Davis led a team toward the massive jump gate orbiting Jupiter, the Council's connection to their empire. Jump gate in visual range, Ryan reported. Minimal security presence. Proceeding with approach. The Council had built a network of these gates throughout the galaxy, allowing instant travel between star systems. If Ryan's team could seize control of the Jupiter gate, Earth forces would have a direct path to the galactic core. The minutes ticked down. Daniel extracted himself from the Seattle cruiser, the catalyst hidden and armed. Similar devices were now in place across Earth and throughout the solar system. All teams report status. Admiral Clark commanded from her hidden command center. One by one, the confirmation signals came in. Every catalyst was in position. 60 seconds to activation, Dr. Morgan announced. In that moment, something went wrong. Council security systems on 3 continents suddenly went to high alert. "We've been detected," came an urgent report from London. Council forces moving to extraction points. Admiral Clark made the call immediately. "Activate all catalysts now. We've lost the element of surprise." Dr. Morgan overrode the timers. Across the globe, the catalyst devices activated simultaneously, releasing their carefully tuned disruption wave. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Council ships lost power, their Zentrium cores destabilizing. Extraction equipment shut down. Communication networks failed. On the Seattle cruiser, Daniel watched from his escape vehicle as the massive ship's lights flickered and died. The blue energy field surrounding it collapsed as the ship began to drift. Similar scenes played out worldwide. Council technology, dependent on Zentrium, simply stopped working. Phase 1 successful, Admiral Clark announced. All teams proceed to Phase 2. Seize control while they're down. Earth's forces moved quickly, boarding disabled ships and securing extraction facilities. The Council forces, suddenly without their technological advantage, found themselves outmatched by determined human resistance fighters. At the Jupiter jump gate, Ryan's team encountered minimal resistance. "Gate control center secured," he reported, preparing for transit to galactic core. The counterattack had succeeded beyond their hopes, but they knew the Council's homeworlds remained. And this was just the beginning of Earth's revenge. Ryan Davis stood at the command center of the Jupiter jump gate, watching as the massive ring structure powered up. The stolen Council access codes had worked perfectly. The gate's energy field shimmered, creating a stable wormhole to the galactic core. "Transit path confirmed," his navigator announced. "We have a direct route to the Council's central hub." Earth's hastily assembled fleet gathered near the gate. These weren't elegant warships. They were converted cargo vessels, scientific platforms, and Council shuttles captured during the initial attack. but each carried catalyst devices and determined crews. All ships report ready status. Came the communication from Admiral Clark, who commanded from the lead vessel. The gate will remain stable for 43 minutes, Ryan informed her. After that, we can't guarantee control. Admiral Clark gave the order. All ships commenced transit. One by one, the ships entered the gate, vanishing in flashes of light as they were hurled across thousands of light years to the heart of Council space. On Earth, the situation was chaotic but promising. Council forces, cut off from their advanced technology, were being overwhelmed by human resistance fighters. Extraction facilities stood idle. The poisoning of Earth had paused, at least temporarily. Dr. Lauren Bennett worked frantically at the captured Council Communications Center in Sydney. For years, she had studied the Council's propaganda methods. Now she used that knowledge against them. Broadcasting on all frequencies, she announced to her team. Every Council world will see this. The transmission began, a carefully compiled record of Council atrocities, not just on Earth, but on hundreds of worlds across the galaxy. The images showed planets stripped bare, species driven to extinction, civilizations reduced to slave labor, all to feed the Council's insatiable appetite for resources. Let other worlds see what we've experienced, she said grimly. Let them know they're not alone. The broadcast reached planets where subjugated species had suffered under Council rule for generations. On world after world, the sight of Earth's successful resistance ignited long-suppressed hopes. Rebellions erupted across the galaxy. At the galactic core, Earth's fleet emerged from the jump gate to find confusion instead of organized resistance. The catalyst disruption had reached this far, disabling Council defenses and communication systems. Many of their massive ships drifted powerless in space. They never expected anyone to fight back. Admiral Clark observed as her fleet approached the central hub, a massive space station that served as the Council's seat of government. Captain Daniel Wells led the boarding party onto the station. Minimal resistance, he reported as they secured corridor after corridor. Most Council officials are attempting to evacuate. Commander Jason Reyes, an expert in alien cultures, made contact with representatives of other species aboard the station. Many had been forced to serve the Council as translators, advisors, or technical specialists. They want to help, Jason reported. They're providing layout maps and security overrides. In the station's central chamber, Earth forces found the Council High Command, 12 beings from the founding species, attempting to purge records and destroy evidence. In the name of Earth and all worlds you've destroyed, you are under arrest, Admiral Clark announced as they were surrounded. The Council leaders seemed genuinely shocked. One stepped forward, its forearms raised in what might have been a gesture of authority. You cannot do this, it said. We are the Council. We have ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. Not anymore, Admiral Clark replied simply. As Earth forces secured the station, Jason Reyes worked with representatives from other species to establish communication with their homeworlds. Alliances formed quickly among the formerly subjugated planets. They're calling it the Liberation, Jason told Admiral Clark. From the Centauri sector to the Outer Rim, planets are rising up against Council loyalists. The scale of Council exploitation became clear as Earth forces accessed their central database. Thousands of worlds classified as resource assets. Entire species relocated or eliminated when they resisted. A system of galactic plunder that had operated for millennia. Dr. Bennett continued her broadcasts, now reaching every corner of known space. We don't seek to become the new Council, she announced. Earth extends a hand in true partnership to all free worlds. As the day ended, Admiral Clark stood at the viewing port of the central hub, looking out at the stars. Phase 3 complete, she said quietly. Now comes the hard part, building something better. 1 year after Earth's victory, the massive assembly hall of the former Council's central hub buzzed with activity. Representatives from over 200 worlds gathered for the first official session of the Galactic Assembly. The curved walls displayed the flags and symbols of every member world, with Earth's blue and green banner prominently positioned, but no larger than any other. Ambassador Nicole Chen adjusted her formal jacket as she prepared to address the gathering. Once a history professor specializing in diplomatic relations, she now represented humanity to the stars. The irony wasn't lost on her. "The journey that brought us here was born of necessity," she began, her voice carrying through the chamber. "Earth faced extinction at the hands of the Council. We fought not just for ourselves, but for every world that suffered under their rule." Delegates nodded, many having experienced similar exploitation. The former Council species, now represented by new governments, sat quietly in their section, their numbers reduced to observer status until they completed the reparation programs. "Today we formalize what we've been building this past year," Nicole continued. "An alliance based not on exploitation, but on mutual respect and benefit, where technology and resources are shared, not stolen." The new charter was displayed on screens around the chamber. Unlike the Council's complex hierarchy that privileged founding members, the assembly structure gave equal voice to all worlds regardless of technological advancement. Dr. Samantha Wilson, now heading the Interstellar Scientific Cooperative, watched from her seat in Earth's delegation. The past year had been the most challenging and rewarding of her career. The research that had begun as a weapon against the Council had evolved into something much more valuable. "The Zentrium Stabilization Protocol has been shared with all member worlds," she reported when called upon. "This technology allows safe use of Zentrium without the destructive mining practices the Council employed. Sustainable energy production is now possible across the galaxy." From the Rigelian delegation, a representative rose to speak. Their species had lost 3 habitable worlds to Council extraction. "For generations, we believed ourselves alone in our suffering," they said. "Earth showed us that resistance was possible, and more importantly, that healing is possible." The healing process wasn't simple. Many worlds had been so thoroughly stripped that they required extensive restoration. Earth led these efforts, sharing the environmental recovery techniques they had developed to repair their own damaged ecosystems. Kevin Hayes directed these programs, traveling between devastated planets to implement restoration technology. The Council took shortcuts, extracting resources in the most damaging ways possible, he explained to the Assembly. "We're developing methods that allow worlds to recover while still meeting their resource needs." In a secure chamber deep within the station, the trial of Council leaders continued. Unlike the system they had created, the new justice process focused on restoration rather than punishment. Former Council officials worked to repair the damage they had caused, their knowledge turned toward healing instead of exploitation. Commander Jason Reyes, who had become the Assembly's chief diplomat, updated the gathered representatives on these proceedings. "Justice is not about revenge," he reminded them. "It's about ensuring these crimes never happen again." As the session concluded, Nicole met with her team to discuss the day's developments. The challenges ahead remained enormous. Planets still in crisis, tensions between formerly competing species, the complex work of building trust after millennia of Council rule. "There are still Council loyalists hiding in the outer systems," Ryan Davis reported, now heading security for the Assembly. "They believe they can eventually restore the old order. And some worlds want to use our technology to become the new Council," Dr. Morgan added. "Power can corrupt anyone, not just the original Council species." Nicole nodded, acknowledging the concerns. "That's why this alliance is structured differently. No single world, including Earth, holds authority over others. We all keep each other in check." As the Earth delegation prepared to return to their quarters, Admiral Clark joined them. She looked out at the stars visible through the station's viewport. "When we planned the attack, I never thought beyond survival," she admitted quietly. "I just wanted to save our planet." Nicole followed her gaze to the distant stars, each one potentially surrounding worlds now finding their path to recovery. "We did more than survive," she replied. "We created a chance for something better. For everyone."